Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this service from the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Grand Traverse. I'm Amanda Mangiardi, and I am co-chair of the Sunday Services Committee, and I serve as a trustee on the board, and I am the editor of The Beacon. Ours is a welcoming congregation whose individual members are committed to building and maintaining a place of safety and growth for all people of goodwill. We follow our 7 principles as a way of life. I want to welcome any newcomers who may be with us today in the sanctuary or watching our live stream service today. Is there anyone here that would like to rise and identify yourself?
I'm Brian Beaver. This is my wife, Kate Darby, and we're new and felt very welcome so far. Thank you.
Welcome. Wonderful. Anybody else?
I'm Teresa. This is my fiance David. Also, this is our first time here. We were here at the solstice celebration and felt really welcome, so we thought we'd be back.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Please stay for the social hour today, and if you're new, please take a yellow mug so that we can identify you and get to know you better. Even though we are largely virtual, we still very much connect as a community. One of the ways we connect with one another is through sharing our joys and concerns. And for those of you who are in the sanctuary, you can write in the book over here on my right at any time during the service. And for those of you at home, if you'd like to submit a joy or concern for a service, there's a form on the website that you can use. Today's service is What's the Meaning of Life? This is your opportunity to ask Reverend Alex a question that's on your mind and heart in this service of thinking on the fly and finding our center. You should have received in your order of service a green piece of paper which you may write your joy and concern with. You should have received a pencil, and we'll be collecting those during the offertory using that gold box that's over there. So just keep them in your hand, and when the box comes around, put them in the box. We hope you enjoy the service today and that it gives you food for thought and centers you to bring your best self to the week ahead. Now we will listen to the prelude performed by Julie Galbach.
Whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here with us this morning. I'm Reverend Alex. I use he and him pronouns, and I get to be the minister of this incredible community right here. A Happy New Year to you as I return from my trip to California. Believe it or not, I actually missed you all, and I am back to tell the tale. I'm grateful to be back as we embark on this service of both questions but also uncertainty. No matter who you are, we remind you that your journey here has been sacred, that here we have a place for you no matter where that journey has led or who it is that you are becoming. There are some wise words that I'd like to share with you for our opening words this morning that come from the classic and favorite movie Forrest Gump. Anyone familiar with that movie? Well, I'm going to adapt the circumstances just a little bit, but the quote itself goes, "Life is like a box of chocolates." What's the second part? You never know what you're going to get. So on this Question Box Sunday, I'd like to say that life is sometimes like a box of questions. And in my case, I won't quite know what I'm going to get. But I still hope that you'll think of a question and put it on that little green slip of paper, and then put it here in this little golden box when we pass it around during the offertory, and Amanda will choose a selection of those for me to wrestle with in real time. So now we come to the time where we light our chalice. I'll invite Amanda to come forward. As we light our chalice this morning, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism and the flame of curiosity and love, I invite you to hear these words from Janet Parsons. The flame of our chalice this morning is a symbol of the warmth and brightness of our connections. The flame lights our way back together again from our separate lives, and it lights our way forward into this new church year of promise and renewal. Let us now sound the singing bowl as we settle into this sacred time together. We'll hear now our opening hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken, which Renee, our music director, will lead us in. And the lyrics will also be up here on the screen, or if you prefer the hymnal, it's number 38 in your gray hymnal.
Rise as you are willing and able, and certainly those at home join us in singing Morning Has Broken. Mine is the
Good morning. I'm Chris Walter, and I'm here to tell you about one of our 2022 Gamble awardees. Even before Rick Walter and I experienced our house fire January 4th, 2019, we knew it was time to retire from co-chairing the membership committee. The person we turned to had joined UUCGT just 2 years prior in 2017, yet she exhibited excellent leadership qualities, attention to detail, reaching out to visitors as they came in the door, welcoming new members, and getting acquainted with current members because she was joining activities and other groups here at this congregation. Behind the scenes, yet critical to UUCGT functioning, this person very ably and regularly updates our member and friend directory online, makes updates to our website so that it is current and informational, and does a lot of our Facebook posts to let the wider community know what we're about and what we're doing here. This person has organized field trips for interested members, and she currently heads up the Wednesday suppers group, which is a wonderful opportunity to get to know others. Unknown to many, she's also been a behind-the-scenes mentor, trainer, right-hand support person, and question answerer for our dear office administrator, newly hired this spring, Erica Eshelman. Not only that, there's one more thing Rick and I learned, and that's she was an excellent Svarupa yoga instructor and often lent out her studio for UUCGT affiliated activities. By now, you know who this person is. And so it is my privilege to honor our friend Chris Lautz with a 2022 Jim and Ruth Gamble Award for outstanding service to UUCGT. Please come forward, Chris. A certificate for you, and I'll just say a word about what's in this box. People may have seen this pin on some of our members' name cards. The pin that we award to the Gamble awardees is symbolic of the outstanding service given by Jim and Ruth Gamble in the early days of this congregation. Jim was a person who was always there to open the door with a key to the building wherever the group was meeting, and Ruth understood so completely that it was key to get to know and welcome every person who walked in that door, get to know their names and know them. Thank you.
I just want to say, if you're attending this congregation, just get involved. It's a great group of people. However involvement looks like to you, just do it because you won't regret it. Thank you.
The Gamble awardee I have the honor of introducing is only the second person to receive the award twice. Jane Watts was the first. This person has been a member for more than 40 years and is known in UU circles as the guy who never says no when he's asked to help. He served as president of the Board of Trustees in 2013 and 14. He was a longtime member of the Sunday Services Committee. He's actually a lifer on the Facilities Committee and heads up the Memorial Garden. He never, ever seeks credit for his work, and much of it goes unnoticed by many. He was the one who showed up to take Ron Yadek for walks when he was wheelchair bound and negotiated with his caregivers for Ron's well-being. He has helped with Tuesday lunches for years and years. He was ever present at the garage sale for the Ukraine and set up and cleaned up after the recent auction fundraiser. He is well known for questioning, protecting the aesthetics of our building and grounds, and embracing UU principles, often with great intensity. Probably his favorite offering is participating in vocal ensemble. He often says, "I love to make music," and his voice is a gift to the whole ensemble. I'm sure you've guessed by now, I'm speaking of our own Richard Miller. Richard, please come up and accept our appreciation. We have a key for you
Oh, thank you.
to go with that one. And your certificate. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, everybody. I'm deeply honored, obviously. I'm also somewhat embarrassed because there are a number of you who I well know who were here long before, well, at least it wasn't that long before I was. And there are certainly many of you that greatly exceed involvement and giving of your talents. So, and some of you can fill both of those things. So, thank you. I guess I accept the second one more for you, because this congregation, genius, its virtue, is that everybody just pitches in whatever they have to pitch in. And that's just amazing. So, thank you all.
I'm Carl Kyneth, and it's my honor to talk about the third Gamble Award winner, this year's third winner. This person started attending UUCGT in the late 1970s. They joined and have been a member since the early 1990s. This person is a musical treasure. They sing with the choir, served as a substitute choir director when we were between directors, serves on the music committee, plays guitar and sings at services, and stars with the UU Ukers. Although they told me not to say that because the other Ukers might get annoyed. This person serves on the Sunday Services Committee, coordinates services, and has written poetry that they shared at services. This person is active on the landscaping and stewardship committees and helps the facility committee. They painted the minister's office when Reverend Kathy came and painted it again when Reverend Alex was called. They are a proud member of the sidewalk shoveling crew. This person was on the church board a few years ago when no one wanted to be president, if you can believe that. No problem, you can do it. We all said we would help. That was the year we were in the process of hiring Reverend Alex, and then the pandemic hit. This person helped the team that developed live streaming, and that committee was so efficient that we only canceled one service before we started Zooming. Recently, this person has worked on overhauling our UUCGT website with Chris Lautz, another of our Gamble Award winners. I present Superwoman, Mary Ann Rivers Freeze. Here's a pin for you and a certificate, and now we'd like you to speak to the assembly folks.
Actually, I'm just exhausted. Just listening to that list of stuff. It is my joy and privilege to be part of this congregation. If I can do it without crying. This is my spiritual home. When I come in the door, I can feel the warmth and acceptance. And I'm so proud to be able to offer my stewardship, time, talent, and treasure. And I will continue to do so as long as I can. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, all the new Gamble Award winners. Very well deserved, and we are so lucky to have you. Friends, it's now time to show our appreciation for the blessings we receive by being a member of and supporting this beloved congregation. Our baskets have two sides. One is to maintain the church and staff. One is for funds that support our many outreach programs in our community that protect and help our most vulnerable individuals. You can give money to us, the church, in the ways listed on the slide. And now, Reverend Alex is going to pass around the question box. So please put your questions in there. Thank you.
So it is also our practice as a religious community to set aside time in our service to name and honor the joys and concerns that touch our lives, those milestones and moments of our lived experiences. I have a few that I'll be sharing that have been offered for us to hold on our hearts as we are gathered. If you have a joy or a concern that's a bit too tender to share, you are always invited at any time in our service to go and light a candle off to my right here. Also you can reach out to a member of our congregational care team or myself. Joni, are you out there? Where are you? Oh, she's behind the glass there. And anybody else? Anybody else from? I see Judith back there too. These are some excellent folks who are also on the congregational care team who you can speak to. And above all else, you're also just welcome to feel the love of this community embrace you if what you have to share is a bit too tender. None of us is ever meant to travel life's journey alone. So here is what has been offered up for us to hold on our hearts this morning. From Dave Weaver, this is a few weeks late. I'm delighted to be spending my first Christmas married to Alyssa Irani. I can't recall any love at all. Oh baby, this blows them all away. From Chris Walter, a joy. Sandra and Mike McDonald, former members of UUCGT, will be in Traverse City this next week, and they plan on attending Wednesday supper, and it will be good to see them again. So mark your calendars for this Wednesday if you'd like to see Mike and Sandra again. I have some names to hold. Kate Jarvie and Brian Beamer. From Susan Smith, a joy. My husband Frank is celebrating his 76th birthday on Friday, January 13th, along with his firstborn son, who is celebrating his 49th birthday. So some really lovely birthdays. And now let's take a moment to just hold on our hearts all of those joys and concerns that remain there on our hearts and in the silence. And let us now join in taking some deep breaths together, taking a deep breath in and out. Centering ourselves with one more deep breath in and out. Spirit of life and love, in this time of uncertainty, we pause now to hold our breath, looking toward that future which is still yet unknown. In the times when we fail, as we always do, to know and love our neighbors, in the times when we use our words as weapons and our beloved gifts as cudgels, may we remember our resilience. We have known uncertainty before. We have seen these storms and trials, and each time we have risen like a phoenix from the ashes, just as we will do again and again. May we remember our shared humanity and our kinship as we soften our hearts and we breathe together. May we find the sparks of love and humanity inside all of us, even those that we are not quite so sure about. In this time of uncertainty, we remember that love will always win. There can be no other way. And so may love prevail. And in the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen. Let's see. Does Amanda have some questions for me? She might be sorting. I do have some extras, just to start us off here. You all are no short of questions. So one kind of funny question I have here is, what type of fruit are you today? So we can start there. What type of fruit am I today? Well, I'm feeling a little red, I guess, so a little red and shiny on the outside. I am feeling a little bit crisp from all this weather on the inside, so maybe I'm a little bit kind of like an apple. Let's see, and do you have some questions? Thank you so much. Okay. Here's a question. what has been your biggest challenge since becoming our UUCGT minister? Ooh, a good one, a good one. Funny enough, I think for me, one of my biggest challenges has actually been to just believe in myself, and that sounds funny. You all clearly see a minister in me, but it's pretty intimidating walking in as a young adult to a congregation that's well above your age, and more or less convincing them that you know what you're doing when you're fresh out of school, and so I've got you fooled pretty well, I think. This is going pretty well, no, but I mean, I think that that's really the hardest thing. I mean, a lot that comes with that is just, building confidence and trusting that we made a mutual decision to do this ministry dance together, and that there was a good reason behind it. I think I'm well on my way to finally having a little more confidence. So, thank you for that question. Here we go. I have always appreciated your words, a God of your own making. Can you tell us how you come to this idea of God and how it affects your living? So this is an interesting bit. So I grew up in an atheist agnostic household, and so God was not something that we ever really talked about. And it was something that felt very foreign for me growing up and hearing the name God kind of mentioned among my friends. So I actually hadn't heard this phrase until I was in divinity school. My minister supervisor, Stephanie, who you got to hear at the installation service offer her homily, she gave me that phrase of a God of your own understanding. Because, like many UUs, some of us kind of wrestle with that idea of God and how do you believe or access it, if at all. So I think, really, the idea of a God of my own understanding, there's an understanding of God that I can have that, doesn't limit somebody else's belief or understanding of their God. I think really what it boils down to, in terms of how it affects my own living, I think really it goes to the first principle idea that there is inherent worth and dignity within all of us. And we have different names for where that, worth and dignity. I really like Unitarian Universalism because many other traditions start first where, the worth and dignity comes, top down. God, makes people in his own image and all those types of things. Unitarian Universalists flip that and say, nope, it actually comes from the bottom up. It's humanity that has the inherent worth and dignity. And that's something that I've always really resonated with. So I think really that's kind of how I will continue to wrestle. God is not an easy thing to understand or even name or live with. But I think for me, that's really how I'd answer that. So thank you for that question. And here's a really interesting question. Why do we crave meaning? Why do we crave meaning? That's the big question of why we're all here, right? And also the question of Mira and the big story. what is this whole meaning thing? I think for me, I answer this a little bit with thinking about computers. How computers need software in order to run. I think human beings often need stories in order for them to kind of run our own kind of internal software. We saw a really great, array of different stories on how to understand, what is this whole big story that we're in. I think human beings crave meaning because that's really just a part of how we're hardwired. It's a part of our social technology to have stories that we share together and bond with others for and through. And so meaning making is really, while a central thing in Unitarian Universalism, it's a central thing to our humanity. We need meaning in order to survive. Without it, what is there? And this is something that when they look at studies of people, and you can understand this in different ways. When they've looked at studies between folks that are people of faith or people that don't have any, traditional faith or background, Unitarian Universalism might be between the two of those. They've found that people that do have a sense of faith of some sort do have more resilience. And I think it comes down to that same understanding of meaning making and kind of having a framework to start. So we crave meaning because we need it. We need it. We're like, without meaning, human beings are kind of like computers without software. They just kind of sit there, right? So that's how I would answer that question. Let's see. If a person has one purpose in your time here, what should it be? That is an interesting question. One purpose in your time here. So one purpose in our time here on Earth, I'm going to kind of lean into that understanding. I think I surprise myself too sometimes when I write those sermons, and what I can sometimes, it's like, wow, I didn't know I believed that. And one of the more, full transparency up here, folks. This is how the sausage is made. One of those things, I think that really surprised me was that sermon I did recently on a world of wonder, that idea of, we are the universe, not just understanding itself, but loving itself. I think that that's something that, I've heard many people kind of talk about it in different ways about the purpose of life is, for life to continue on, for, I think for me the answer might just be that, it's our answer to love in whatever shape or form, and that, at least in my experience, and many other traditions would say this too, love somehow always seems to be the, prevailing factor, no matter what there is. I just love that image internally of a human being just falling in love with the universe and asking questions and figuring it all out. I love that idea of, I'm imagining myself as a kid, right, looking in these tide pools and just finding so much wonder. We're all made of that same stuff, and so it's just really interesting to see that, interchange happening. So I think I would say if a person has one purpose in our time here, I think it would be to love, to learn, ask questions too, but to really learn to love one another and to love this world we're in. So that's all I'd answer that. Let's see here. What does finding your center really mean? And isn't it always shifting? This is a really interesting question. What does finding your center really mean? I think this is true that, that second question, isn't it always shifting? Our centers really kind of are always shifting. I think if you know people throughout their lives, people become many different iterations of who they are, many different personalities or changes and interests. I think finding your center might be kind of, in some ways, combination of these two ideas. You're always moving in some way, shape, or form, of who you are internally. And in some ways, really staying attuned to that as you're going through it and being in conversation with that. I think maybe that's what finding your center means to me, is that, even me as a human being going through these changes and whatnot, I'm really kind of paying attention to that internal dialogue as well as all this information that's outward. So I think finding your center really is kind of about, and it depends. I don't know if, I think there are some elements that are core to who we are, that we do have that continue on through, even through all the different shifts and changes. So in some way, paying attention for those, things that are markers of who we are, and staying in touch with those is what I would answer, That's maybe what finding your center really is. Oh, this is a deep one. Are you ready for it? Are we alone? There are many ways you can take this question. We're not alone right now, though, and there have been many other estimations scientifically recently that we're likely not alone in our universe either. So if that's where this is aimed, there's no direct proof yet, but a lot of estimations out there that there is still a possibility. But yeah, wondering too, that other spin on it, are we alone? That sense that through life, through all the companionship we might have, right, there are still times where we're bound to be alone, even up until our end. Loneliness seems to be that constant thing that we wrestle with as human beings. I think that sometimes we are alone, but sometimes we also need to remind ourselves of how we're not. Just by virtue of all of us being alone, we're actually all together in that aloneness too. It's a very common feeling to be alone as human beings. So in all those different ways, aliens are possibly real. We're not alone together right now, and in fact, that's the thing that we need to remind ourselves of, especially when we're feeling at our loneliest. I think we have time for maybe a couple more, and I promise we'll move on. Here are two, actually, that we can do right here, and then I'll wrap it up. Do you personally believe our spirits exist after death? Ooh. So, this is a hard one to answer. And again, I'm going to plead the Unitarian Universalist on this one and say, gosh, who knows? What do you think? Sorry, I'm a little dry today. But yeah, like, I think I personally believe that, energy is conserved, in some way, shape, or form. If you want to call that spirit or soul or light or, what it is, you can put your name to it. I think that there's an undeniable fact that whatever there is does continue on, and does kind of take a new form. So, there are ways that spirits do kind of, in essence, exist after death or maybe take shape. I won't pretend to know the great mystery of what happens when we're not here. Nobody's been, around to tell the tale. But I think in terms of what I observe here and what I'd say, I would say in some ways our spirits do exist after death. Even when we spread ashes of a loved one, beneath a tree or out in nature, we find comfort knowing that those pieces are now becoming the world around us in some ways, and that is not, there's not a finiteness to that there's something that, continues on after. But I will plead the Unitarian Universalist and say that's one that you're going to have to figure out yourself, because my answer maybe won't work for you. And then here's a great second question to end on. What functions do ministers have in our political climate? Heavy hitters today, folks, heavy hitters. I think this is the tension that has always existed since there have been ministers and clergy and people in power, especially in the name of religion and whatnot. If you look at what ministry is about, I've heard some people sum it up, and I've told a few of this too before, that the role of a minister is to comfort the afflicted, but also to afflict the comfortable. There have been lots of tensions. I've read a lot of old stuff from even, Unitarian ministers in the 1800s talking about, man, it's really hard to push all this social change. My congregation of all these wealthy elites doesn't like it very much, They don't like it when I talk bad about the things that are going on and their role in it. But I think that that's really one of the central parts that a minister needs to always, keep a finger on the pulse of. It's kind of the both and of, especially looking at politics, There's also the caution, though, about, ministers, especially in the United States, in our, context here, aren't allowed to get partisan. It's a misunderstanding, though. Ministers are allowed to get political, and that's one of the misunderstandings that people have, because religion really is all politics, if you think about it. All those things about making sure that our neighbors are clothed and fed and have a home over their heads. That involves politics, decision-making, uplifting the right to vote. That's all wound up in politics as well. So I think like a minister, really, it's kind of that push and pull of, how do I comfort the afflicted but also still afflict the comfortable? And what are also ways that ministers can hold people accountable, right? To those values, to say, this is what we say we believe, now let's go match that vision, with what we're actually doing. I think that's really a central part of what a minister can do when they're really living into their ministry. Okay, so I lied. I have one last one, and then we'll move on. I really wanted to get to this one. This was one that was sent in to me over email that I thought was really an opportunity for us to talk about. So national and local economic growth is usually a sought-after goal and an indicator of health. But what about a congregation's growth? If membership or the budget slows growth or reverses course, is that always bad? Does a congregation have to increase in size to thrive? Are there ways a congregation can adapt to the contraction of its membership base without feeling though they are failing? That is a very relevant question, I think, for all of us. And I think that really, oh gosh, I'm losing all my questions here. I think one of the things that we're tempted to do, right, is to always look and say numbers are everything. It's that tension between quality and quantity, where we think, more members means, more money, more everything, more participation, and all those factors. And certainly, we would like to see, these changes. And in fact, we've already witnessed the beginnings of that, here. I mean, that, incredible fundraiser that we did with the auction, shows just how much, abundance there really is here. So I think, there's often a lot of worry around this, rightfully so. We need to make sure that we have a balanced budget, and make sure that we can pay for our costs. But I think that the role, in some ways, of all of us, even in facing scarcity, is to really kind of talk about it in terms of what we're hoping to see. I think a congregation itself should be aiming in some ways to outgrow its budget each year. We want more people to engage and to be involved, and we want to grow our size, not for the sake of numbers. We don't want to just pursue growth because it's, a numbers thing. We want people to also be meaningfully engaged and really to have their lives transformed and to really kind of encounter what we do. So I think in some ways, growth for the sake of growth, no, but growth for the sake of really kind of widening our engagement and using our resources to put our values into practice. I mean, that's something we should be striving to do, is to say, okay, our budget is now at its limits because we have so many people that are, here and wanting to be involved here. So I think that that's something that we don't need to really be feeling like we're failing on, because that's not something that's true here. We're not failing on it. In fact, I see the generosity and abundance that we already have here in our midst, and the ways that people are getting engaged and coming forward. And that's truly, really inspiring. So that's what I'd say to this question, is that our congregation is healthy, and there's only more to come on the horizon of our time. And I'm just really, really grateful for the ways that people have stepped up and really helped out and been a part of that. Oh, okay. Well, I think I've given you enough. And if you didn't get your question read, you can always feel free to make a time to chat with me about it or send it in to me over email. I'd love to hear your question, even if we weren't able to get to the end of it. And thanks for partaking in this experiment with me of a Sunday without a sermon, but hopefully you found a nugget of something in there that moved you. So thank you.
Well, I invite everyone to join me as you are willing and able to end our service with our final hymn, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.
Our chalice extinguishing words today are from Martha Munson. We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again.
So in the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, and in the spirit of curiosity and all of life's greatest questions, may we be made ready to serve one another and to create the world that we so desperately dream of. Go in peace all, and may it be so, and amen. Our service is now at its end, so please go in peace, but also grow in love. Good to be with you this Sunday.